You are listening to Frog Talk, presented by Black Ribbon.
Thank you so much for joining me on Frog Talk. Today, we're exploring a critical but often overlooked aspect of company culture, its impact on our personal relationships and family life. While we often discuss workplace dynamics and organizational strategies, we rarely examine how a potentially stressful work environment can affect our closest relationships and our overall well-being. Imagine a workplace that your spouse is grateful for. How great would that be for your brand? I have the great pleasure of speaking with Dr. Laura Spiller today, a clinical psychologist who specializes in helping couples build closer, more satisfying relationships, particularly when external stressors are taking a toll. Dr. Spiller helps couples interrupt negative cycles that lead to disconnection and develop healthier ways of supporting each other through challenging times. Welcome, Dr. Spiller.
Thank you, Nader. I'm really excited to talk about the intersection of work and personal relationships. This is near to my specialization. I really specialize in helping ambitious, driven, dual career couples who can remember when they were able to take on anything together. But as life has piled up on them, they are at a place where communication doesn't go as well. The connection is really tough. And it's confusing because they communicate well with everybody else in their life, but they just can't quite get back to being a team again. And that's really what I specialize in, because once those couples are a team, man, there is nothing they can't do. And when our relationships are good, right, we have more energy and more availability to bring our best selves to the workplace. And when our workplace, right, just like you said it, right, when our workplace is one that invigorates us, that gives our life meaning and structure and purpose, then we can also be our best selves in our relationships. So I just think that intersection is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm particularly excited about this because ever since this podcast launched, it's all about branding and the modern workplace and how specific kinds of leadership affect all the interwork dynamics, all the sort of interdepartmental dynamics, but how they also impact people's personal lives. And yet the lens through which the conversations take place here is usually from inside the company and not outside the company. So it's more like personal experiences, but I think this perspective is going to bring shed a lot of light on what both positive and negative workplace dynamics can actually do to somebody's personal life, especially those who have families and are in relationships and so on. So to just kick things off, could you share with us a story that illustrates how workplace stress typically shows up in the relationships you work with?
Yeah, there's so many ways it impacts relationships. I mean, I think the most common a problem or concern that I see is when the work takes up so much space in a person's life that it can then be really hard to have the presence and the accessibility and the openness that we need to have in our relationships to make those relationships thrive. And so when they're, often one of the things I see, couples will come together and they will agree, hey, your job brings in the money. It has the greatest growth potential, and we're going to be behind each other. And, your job is going to be kind of our priority. But then the job, these are lawyers, investment bankers, traders, and then the job, in the beginning, they're behind that, right? But then the job grows and grows and grows and grows and starts to take over so many aspects of life. I mean, there's just not enough time in the calendar for the other things that matter and important. In the beginning, you can do that. But then when there's kids, and another partner's career, time becomes such a limited resource, and bandwidth becomes such a limited resource. So, for the relationship, where couples struggle, I mean, there absolutely is a need to be able to be there for each other, even if it's just like at the end of the day. So, you ask, kind of tell a story, what's coming to mind for me is one partner's at home, been starting dinner, another partner comes in, the partner that's, maybe has the biggest job comes in, and you can just see the tension that they carry into in through the door, tight shoulders, the brow, my husband will have a muscle bouncing in his cheek if he's had a super intense day, right? And then as a couple, what do you do with that? There's a lot of, and the other partner may immediately think, right, you're not going to be interested in my day. I mean, how do you bring presence to the relationship when you're coming in the door and everything's tense and your mind is full of all the things that you need to do, what you didn't get done before you left the office, what has to be done tomorrow? And it just can take up a lot of space there. And so, I have couples where they really can have those conversations, take some of the stress out, connect over that, and then go on to cook dinner together, put the kids to bed together. Others where this has been such a history, I mean, that whole tension says, you're not going to be accessible for me. You're not going to be there for me. Your mind is on work. And then the walls go up, or, that partner may even get kind of upset. Like, why are you bringing your shit home? I'm sorry. Yeah. Why are you bringing your, okay. Why are you bringing this work tension home? And so really one of the dilemmas for couples is what to do with that work stress.
Right. So
these big jobs.
Yeah, that's, so you touched on a few things. I'm thinking about, I guess every job, even if it's fulfilling, can be stressful. So meaning that, if you have a heavier day, or, especially people in management role, it doesn't actually matter what role you're in. If you're depending on other people and, maybe something is delayed, or something happens where work falls behind, anything. It could be, things out of your control or otherwise, but overall your job is fulfilling. That stress can still come home with you. And
yeah, I mean, meaningful, important things that we do still come with discomfort.
Yeah, absolutely. And then and then on the flip side, if you have the buzzword toxic workplace, then it just piles on even more, and you sort of carry resentment across the board, not just with the people that you work with, but what's very familiar in my life is, cliches are cliches because they're basically true, but you hurt the ones you love because you feel safe around them. So, they become your punching bags, or figuratively, of course. So you unload on them, you unload all of your stresses and so on, to the point where you sort of forget that they might have had a bad day, even if they're a home, a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom or otherwise. Doesn't mean they didn't have a stressful day. So, how do you sort of identify those dynamics and get through compartmentalizing, when certain things happen, and how to best communicate that to your partner so that the home life is not so dark?
Yes. I mean, that's such a good description of the dilemma that people face, right? The person coming home, as we're saying, best case scenario, is stressed, but maybe if they've got that toxic workplace environment, there's even more tension and stress and concern. And typically, it doesn't even have to be the other partner probably is wanting something from them. And what adds to that tension that can lead to people getting angry and blowing up is that sense that they're disappointing their partner, right? They know that their partner wants them to somehow share about their day, wants them to help with the kids, wants them to talk about what are we doing for Thanksgiving with our families. And often they come in the door and they just don't have the space for that. And so in addition to the stress, now they're coming in and somewhere inside, they know that they're disappointing their partner because they're not bringing their best self home. They're bringing home this stressed out version that just sort of almost can't tolerate, like, having to turn and open up and talk about anything else. And it's typically that confluence of the work stress and then the relationship stress, right? Like, you want somebody who's relaxed and can talk to you about these things. And I know I'm disappointing you, that kind of leads to the cup overflowing. And, when somebody is lashing out, I mean, typically the lashing out has the function of trying to say, give me some space. But if they're already feeling like a disappointment, they may not know how to say, hey, I see you. I want to connect with you. But right now, I mean, my brain is full of work and I am so stressed out. Can you give me 15 minutes to go listen to some music and, just decompress so then I can come back to you and connect or talk about the day or, be there. But often that doesn't happen because our lives are so fast, right? There's, I
Right.
mean, and we're not used to, these are things that are just hard for all of us, right? We're not used to people wanting to know how we feel, caring that, caring about how we feel. The expectation is that I'm just going to disappoint you. And so there is a shift there. But when we can shift to being able to send a signal that says, this is not about you. This is about my work. I really do want to be there for you. I want to connect with you. And right now, this is taking over all my headspace. And I just need, can I have 10 to 15 minutes to decompress? And then I want to come and hear about your day and help with whatever needs to be helped with. That can send such a safety signal to the other partner. I mean, it says you care about me and you want what I want, and you actually need me to support you and help you to rinse out the tension of the day and kind of be able to shift gears into being, who you want to be at home.
I picked up a few things that you mentioned in that story, and one thing that really stands out to me is, have you had experience in your practice where, even when an individual is having problems at work and even push it to the point where their work is actually a toxic environment, but good communication dynamics and good, needed support and a supportive partner in the home life actually ameliorates that environment and makes their coping better, if that makes sense?
I mean, your question alone just speaks to me because I think I work from an attachment theory perspective, and attachment theory, it really says that we are wired for connection, and when we have a bond with a significant other with whom that we can reach and get their support, that we are more flexible, we are more capable, we cope better, our nervous system is just more regulated. And so absolutely, that's the ideal, right? Because whether it's a toxic work situation or, aging parents or children with struggles, as a couple, we are going to face difficult situations, like a toxic workplace environment. And
Right.
being able to have somebody who has your back, who understands, who can encourage you, can help you cope with it better. And, it can help you also be able to go out there and try to modify those things that are creating a toxic workplace environment. Now, the opposite side is true. And the dilemma that often couples face, is that we are really, we are socialized to be problem solvers.
Right.
And sometimes in relationship, the caring, supportive partner with the best intentions is trying to offer solutions to the
Right.
partner that is stressed and in the work, with a toxic workplace. And, if you were in my therapy sessions, you'll hear, we got to have an understanding conversation, a support conversation before we can have a solution oriented conversation. And then you kind of need to have the clearance that says, I want to have a solution oriented conversation. Because what can happen, and what I see, I just see this all the time, is that the partner who is supportive and sees their person struggling with really nasty stuff at work wants to say, just quit.
Yeah.
We don't need the money. It's not important. You can just quit your job. I mean, because, that's coming from a very good place of wanting to help them get to a better, workplace. And the way that can land on the person that's struggling is that it can really invalidate all the reasons why they are in this job. I mean, this job may be really important to them. It's meaningful. It gives, they're contributing something important. There's a lot of hope for what the company does, and these dynamics can feel temporary, or they can feel really stuck. I mean, we talk about the golden handcuffs. I mean, sometimes these workplace environments, the very idea of, quitting, right? I mean, there's, you don't know if you're getting out of the boiling water into the fire, or there may be no other alternative that can pay as well. Particularly people, at big law firms, they're like, it's the same everywhere, unless I'm going in-house or taking a lifestyle position, and it can feel like the contributions and the sacrifice that they're making, for the relationship, for the family, doesn't count and it doesn't matter. Or you want me to quit? You don't even see how valuable it is, the stability, I'm offering, the security I'm offering, my hard work. And so that's where, if they were not talking about the solution, and the supportive partner were able to say, it's really hard for me to see how, you struggle with this. It makes me really sad that your work environment is so hard, because I know how much you care about it. Or even offer some appreciation, right? It's even more meaningful to me that you do this, because I know it's not easy and I know it's hard.
Sorry, it's touching to me, because it's something that resonates with me, because I've experienced that. And so, like, one thing I learned a long time ago, because I'm very much, I want to offer solutions quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like, to the point where before someone even finishes their sentence, it's just inherent to me. I can't help it. I just start thinking of solutions right away.
Yeah, you're a smart, creative person. Who cares about who you're listening to, right? And so your brain is just running their issue through the analysis system, and is, it's like, hey, this is helpful. Maybe you could think about this.
Yeah, and so I learned to simply, I don't like assuming. I mean, I always think speculating is just causes anxiety and can get you into trouble anyway. But I would just ask. I would rather just ask, do you want me to, do you want me to recommend something? Do you want my input, or do you want me to just listen? And that seems to work most of the time, because some people just want you to be a mind reader. And,
Right.
Even when you do know someone that intuitively, you'll still make mistakes, because it's never 100% absolute. So I think it's best to just.
I love that you're kind of going meta, right? You're kind of talking about, how do we talk about this?
Right. Yeah.
And that's such a clear message, right? I want to do what's helpful for you. I can see that you're like, you're holding a lot, right? This is hard, it's stressful for you. And I want to help you in the way that you need. What would be helpful?
Right.
Be helpful to.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly, sort of like, tell me, help me help you kind of a narrative, without saying that, because that also pisses people off. But I think just asking definitely, one, shows that, you're paying attention, you understand that it could be either, and that you're sensitive to both, and you're willing to adjust based on whatever response you're getting. And I think that helps in having that conversation that you just described. Like, why don't you just quit? Also, in addition to everything you mentioned, with which I agree completely, it also kind of sends a message that, you're just not strong enough, like you can't hack it. And like that's really can be very insulting. Like I've been doing this whole time. Why would I suddenly quit? Like after I put in all this effort, and the light at the end of the tunnel is there. It might be very small, but I see it. Why can't you? Like that kind of stuff starts coming up. But I think like asking the question and disarming and allowing the conversation to unfold allows for just a more thoughtful process and mindful thinking about the overall situation, where now you can think about the work more objectively and see how it plays a role in not just your own dynamics, but in your family dynamics and in your home life and even your personal life. Like maybe you suddenly realize, or your partner sees, like you're never home, we never go out anymore, or even like your friends are asking about you, like where are you? And it just kind of trickles into all these other areas.
Let me just add one thing there, because I want to, I work with really, really smart people who have good communication skills. And I'm, with their employees, they can easily say, like, do you want me to listen, or, or is this, and it can be really hard in our closest relationships to do that, because you almost have a nervous system connection, so that when your person is anxious, your body is going to feel anxious. And there's so much relationship significance and meaning, too, about coming in with a problem. And so, or that your partner's coming in with this really difficult situation. And so we just sometimes have to take a few deep breaths ourselves, to be able to say, hey, do you want me to listen here? I do want to understand. I mean, what's interesting to me about this is how it impacts you. I know that you've thought about all the solutions for your workplace. I don't even know exactly what it is you do there, right? I'm not going to be able to help you with solutions, but I want to know how you experience it, how it's impacting you, how you're thinking about
Right.
it. To be able to do that, then sometimes we need to calm ourselves, because it is dysregulating, for our partner to be in a really stressful workplace situation. And sometimes, right,
Absolutely.
it has, even just beyond the emotional resonance and attunement, it has practical implications, right? If the startup fails, we've invested all of our money and time in this,
Yeah.
or if, you can't make this work and you get fired. I mean, the partner probably has anxiety about that too. So sometimes it is really important to kind of recognize, I feel anxious, but I want to be there for my partner. I'm going to have to take some deep breaths so I can get in that relationship channel. And it's not about solving the problem. And it's actually not about making their anxiety go away. It's about being able to say, okay, we're in this together.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said about trying to basically empathize with your partner and put yourself in their shoes and understand how they experience it. Because absolutely, we get pissed off when our loved ones are pissed off, when they're upset.
Right.
We
Yeah.
get angry. But when they're in a certain headspace, it turns into, this is about me now. And so they're like, this is not about you. Why are you getting so upset?
Right. Right. And our nervous system, when our important person is angry, I
Yeah.
mean, our nervous system hears the tension and the emotion and not even the words, right? So there's just this autopilot, super quick protective threat detection that says, oh no, you're mad, I'm not safe.
Right.
And it's really fast. And it's very automatic. And it makes sense kind of on an evolutionary big picture. But because we feel that doesn't mean that in this moment that's true. So we can sometimes need to be able to say, okay, wait, this doesn't feel good for me. I'm going to take a few deep breaths so I can like get into that relationship channel and see, okay, what's actually happening here.
So I'm curious, So you do work with the types of couples you work with. I imagine some are in leadership roles. Um, they actually run the company themselves, or they're in high management positions. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So when you're dealing with leaders and workplace stress, does that conversation ever turn into how are you leading your company? What is your leadership style, and how is that impacting your employees, and how is that reflecting back onto you? Does that ever come up?
I mean, I see a lot of applications for attachment theory and obviously relationship, knowledge and skills in the workplace. And I do think sometimes the same way we regulate our emotion in the same way we respond to relational threats, that the same things that can happen in our core relationships can happen in our leadership positions also. So, um, really even some of those same dynamics that we're just talking about, right? If you have it, one of the things I see is someone in a leadership role can feel very threatened by questions, from their employees or even from their, the C-suite, the rest of the leadership. And it can be kind of, a common strategy to want to keep everybody positive, shut down criticism. And that's one where I see that that's really short-sighted. And I think, again, that's coming from trying to solve the problem in the surface way and trying to regulate our own emotions, and being really unsure about how to navigate, those relationships when you're really wanting to get everybody on the same page, but there can be, there's going to be questions, right? There's going to be, ideally you want people to bring their knowledge, their expertise. You've hired them because they bring something.
Absolutely. And the reason that's interesting to me is because in the workplace, I mean, whether it's a positive or sort of stressful workplace, stressful in a bad way, toxic workplace, it's all stemming from leadership. And then it's cyclical, right? Like leadership is creating an environment that's contentious, and then their people are going home and creating an equally contentious environment, and the way that it's going up the ladder is also creating contention. So it's this cyclical thing where leaders leaders need to be mindful of how they're sort of manifesting their own ways and their own management styles into the workplace, and how that's affecting people's way of life and personal lives and family lives. And do you keep people at the office for 18 hours a day, or do you let them spend time with their families? Do you focus on time off and productivity and how those have to do with each other? Like all these various variables. And how is that affecting the leader's home life and their family life and so on? So it's just this cycle. And I wonder again, if in your practice you're able to identify if it's ever come up that you're working with leaders and you're able to identify that sort of cycle and help them break that cycle in creating a more mindful sort of workplace environment.
Since I specialize in couples therapy, that comes up usually as an offshoot. But what I often hear is, oh, what I'm learning in my relationship with my partner is I'm really finding that it's quite applicable in the workplace. That I'm able to keep my balance a little bit more and have more in-depth conversations with my employees, so that I am having a better understanding, of the challenges, and we're able to problem solve together, so that they can take those skills and then apply them in that setting as well.
Yeah, that I'm really glad you said that, because that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm under the impression that, again, it's all connected, it's all cyclical.
All
So if
connected.
you can figure out, how to have the right how to have the right conversations in the right way in a supportive manner where you learn empathy from your partner. If that's something that you struggle with normally, then as a leader, you're able to more directly apply that as well. And you'll see a trickle down effect almost instantly, to where you know this better than I do. People consistently confuse empathy with sympathy. And it's the order is empathize, sympathize, and then advise. So, if you're sympathizing first, then people are like, you're not even listening to me. You're not even hearing what I'm saying. Like you just keep comparing your stories with mine.
Yeah, and in both the relationship and the workplace, really what I'm trying to teach people to do is just slow down a little, which is hard because, the hustle culture, productive, the workplace environment often is about efficiency and trying to kind of get to the next step and the next solution in an efficient, effective way. And, you can honestly get to solutions more quickly if you slow down the conversations, about what is at issue here.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to touch on one more thing. So, is this something you've been experiencing with your patients, remote and hybrid work? So this is very common now. It's become almost commonplace, especially in the white collar space. So has this shift, or how has this shift to remote and hybrid work environments affected relationship dynamics and in the couples that you work with? Because people have home offices now where they shut the door and their kids are on the other side for 8 hours a day. And like, have you had any experience with that?
I'm actually pretty opinionated about this.
Good.
I feel like the work from home has not helped our relationships.
Okay.
For a few reasons. One is it makes it harder to compartmentalize. So it makes it easier for work to enter all of our life. And I believe the science on multitasking that says that we don't do that well. And so whether you're trying to cook dinner and your desk is across the room and you're thinking about work, or whether you're trying to work and, the laundry is kind of around the corner and, I can't help but block that out, that we're a little less efficient. I also see it being hard on relationships, especially, when both work from home, because there can be this illusion of accessibility. And a secure relationship is about three things. It's about accessibility, it's about responsiveness, and it's about engagement. And so we really long for and crave accessibility. And when you're both working at home, there's this illusion that my person is here, but they're really not.
Right.
They're really not. And that can be difficult for couples to navigate. And, thirdly, when you leave and come back together and reconnect, those are times that provide an opportunity for rituals of connection. You can hug and kiss and say, have a great day when you're walking out the door. And when you come back to the end of the day, I think it is so valuable to do a 20-second hug, just lean into each other, feel the warmth of each other's body, and be able to send with your, either say it or just send with that embrace. I'm so glad to see you. How was your day? 5 seconds then of eye contact, that it's really meaningful. And when we don't leave, we lose the opportunity for those rituals of connection that are important. And just the stress of trying to manage home and work. I actually really advocate to people, get your company to pay for a co-working space, so you have a place to go, where you can really concentrate, where you're not trying to do multiple things at once, where you get out of the house. And so, so I'm, as you can see, I'm quite.
No, I'm really glad you are, because there are definitely, this is a split opinion, many are for, there's very few who are sort of in the middle. It's either you're for it or you're against it. And it usually is coming from leadership, whether they're for it or against it. And most employees, and again, this is based on my own research, It's usually people who are single or don't have families, are also split because on the one hand, they like being at home because they're alone in their own space and so on. On the other hand,
Yeah.
they like being at work because they're alone and they want company and
Yeah.
so on. And then the family thing is the same thing. Like they want to be at home so they're available, and the illusion of accessibility that you just described,
Yeah. And I
or
think
they
that,
want
yeah,
to
I
be
think that
away.
it's good to talk about like what are the advantages and the disadvantages, and then how can we kind of try to bring together with the greatest flexibility. I mean, I love the flexibility. I think flexibility is really important for, a better workplace satisfaction, work-life satisfaction. And I've seen people do it well, but it's usually when they have the privilege of having a house where they literally can have two
Yeah.
offices that is
Yeah.
separate from the rest. So
Yeah.
if you can do that, and the doors are locked and you're in two separate places and you kind of know that, hey, one of these, when I'm here, I'm at work,
Yeah.
it can really work and you can have the best of both worlds. But, that can be a pretty privileged place to be able to
Sure.
attain, that kind of space.
Absolutely. Um, so that's a great segue into my final thought. So, from your perspective as a relationship expert, what would you want leaders to understand about how their company culture impacts their employees' lives, and what can they do to sort of address that?
Yeah, I think it even goes bigger than that, right? That if you want an effective workplace, if you want a company that is making the most of the assets and the contributions of your people, that you have to think about how to build community, and how to, um, let them be full people,
Yeah.
which includes, acknowledging the importance of family and relationships. So that the flexibility is important.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working with high level professionals, generally allowing them to set their, how often they're coming in, or what their hours are going to be, allows them to then fit in the things that are meaningful in their life to be able to bring them their best selves to work as well. I probably didn't touch on everything that you're asking in that question, but I just think it's so important to, recognize the humans that work for you,
Yeah.
that have needs for family time, that have needs
Yeah.
for vacation,
Yep.
um, and have need, for good feedback, for their ideas to be listened to, for them to have a safe place to bring concerns.
Yeah.
Um, and then as a leader, you're gonna learn more about your business if you're really a place that people can bring their concerns and they know that they're going to be listened to, and there's going to be an effort to understand and to see their good intentions, and to see, to share some appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. The programs that we design for employer brands to create workspaces that put people first and quality of life sort of above all else. That's our mission, is all rooted in that. It's is rooted in listening and hearing, being aware, and less about generation and age gaps, but more about lifestyle. um, you know, who is this person? What do they do when they're not at work? Because you can be in your early 30s and have a family, and you can be in your 60s and have a family. So you're sort of the same lifestyle ish, but then, you could, so the age is not so much the issue as is what kind of a life you lead outside of work, and that impacts how you show up at work.
And if we're stressed about being overwhelmed, not having enough time for all the things that really are important, if we are worried about disappointing our family and in our business place, I mean, if we have too much on us, we restrict ourselves, right? To regulate, to have to contain all of that pressure and stress, that we really do kind of shut ourselves down a lot of times. And that's going to affect whether your workplace can get your creativity, the just neurologically, the learning state is augmented by less stress. So you're not going to have employees who are capable of doing their best and making their best contributions. if they're overwhelmed.
Absolutely. Dr. Spiller, thank you so much for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I'm so glad you came on the show. And would you tell our guests how they can find you if they want to reach out?
Well, Nader, I just want to say also thank you for asking me, and this was a blast. I love talking about this. So thank you so much. And yeah, I have a specialty practice, experts in couples therapy and relationship, actually for individuals and families also, in the Heights, and we're Heights Couples Therapy. And yeah, we love to help people thrive in their relationships.
Beautiful. And for everyone in Houston, that's in Houston.
Houston,
Texas.
yes, Houston.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Doctor. It was a pleasure, and I'll be in touch.